You're listening to yet another episode of the Brewed Palate Podcast. So grab a beer, sit back, and listen to yet another glimpse into the great craft beer revolution. Hey everybody, Barry here from the Brewed Palate here with Rob Tod from Allagash for the annual Blind Tiger event here in New York City. So I just welcome you back to New York, and what's it like to revisit one of your favorite spots?
Oh, what's it like to revisit it?
Yeah.
I love coming here. I look forward to this event every year, and we've been doing it here since 2007. So, I mean, that's like 7. I guess this is the 7th year we've done this one. So it's a blast, and it's cool to see a lot of the familiar faces that are here, and tonight's a great selection of beer.
Yeah,
so, yeah, been looking forward to it, and it's fun to finally be here.
Right, so I was... As usual with a lot of these Blind Tiger events, they like to post a really cool, batch of information when they announce the event of what inspires them and why they like the brewery. And for this event is that you're coming up on your 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for you guys, and of course you're growing by leaps and bounds now, but what does it really mean to have been around for that long?
It seems like in some ways, it's like the typical cliche. In some ways, it seems like I just started yesterday. In some ways, it's like, man, it's been 20 years. And the first 10 years were a real struggle. We couldn't give the beer away. It was a grind. We did not have a whole lot of growth. And the last 10 years have really been a blur because the brewery really started to get some traction 10 or 12 years into it. Mm-hmm. Right around actually when this Blind Tiger got their liquor license in 2007, that's kind of when we really started to get some traction and sell a lot of beer. And the last 8 or 10 years have just been a blur for us. We have had quite a bit of growth recently, and we're trying to control it. We're not opening up. We really haven't opened up a new market in 6 or 7 years. Right. We don't have big plans to open a ton of markets in the near future. But it's been fun to have the growth over the last few years. Things have been hectic at the brewery recently.
Right. So before we get to some of the new beers, some of the new projects you guys have been brewing up, just concretely, like what new equipment have you added over the past year or so, and how has that, improved your ability to meet demand?
We lived in our original brew house for about 17 years, and it was really a bunch of dairy tanks kind of cobbled together, and it worked for us. We just added a state-of-the-art German brew house, and it's made an amazing difference in terms of consistency, energy savings. We're just able to, we use less raw materials. Right. So it's a far better system. And one of the other cool things it's done is it's freed up the original system for more innovative beers. So 2 years ago, we were running our old system almost 24/7. We didn't have a whole lot of time to do the kind of innovative experimental beers. And now that most of our production's on the new system, the original system we're using to basically do more innovation, and we're running that original system quite a bit. We've made a lot of cool beers lately.
Right. I've also seen pictures of you adding more fermenters, like towards the back of the property. You've added like a whole new area.
Yeah, last week we just added 4 more 500 barrel fermenters, and we're also doing an addition that'll basically give us more bottling space, more loading docks. We've only had 1 loading dock up till, we still have 1 loading dock, but when this new addition is done, we'll finally have 4 loading docks, and that'll make life much easier.
Right, so before we get at some of the more creative beers like the sours, the past year you've added the Saison to your lineup. So what has it been like to add, of course you've had the white, which is, one of the always recognized as one of the best wit beers available, but what has it been like to add the Saison to your lineup?
The Saison's been fun, and I was just actually talking to someone about this. Our employees I see constantly now putting a case of Saison in their shoulder and taking that as their weekly beer allotment. So that's it's been a pretty cool beer to have. We use a different yeast for that from the white beer.
Right.
It's just got that classic Saison character, spicy, almost champagne-y, very, very, very dry. So it's just a real dry, drinkable beer, and it's totally different flavor profile-wise from the white. So it's been a lot of fun having just a totally different but still real kind of drinkable beer in the lineup. It's a nice compliment to the white. And like I said, the crew at the brewery, that always, to me, that's like the big endorsement if all the brewers are drinking it. And a lot of the crew at the brewery is drinking this Saison.
All right, just to geek out for a second, as I've told you, I brew a lot of Saisons myself. So, when you were coming up with your Saison, like, of course, that's a very yeast-driven beer, even more than the wit, because the wit you add some spices and whatever, but Saison is like very yeast-driven. You have to dry it out and ferment it at the right temperature. So
that's right.
How is it like, selecting the right yeast to get the Saison that you, as a Belgian-inspired brewery, wanted to brew?
We experimented with that beer for well over a year. We tried a bunch of different kinds of yeast, and we ended up settling on this particular yeast. To be honest, I don't even remember the origin of the yeast right now, but we settled on this one. We're very happy with it, and like I said, it is a totally different flavor profile than any of our other beers.
Right.
So we feel like it really kind of rounds out the lineup of beers really nicely.
Right. I mean, do you have like a certain set of yeast strains that you guys work with, or are you always trying new things?
We're always trying new things. When I started the brewery, I swore I would only have one yeast strain at the brewery just to keep things simple. Now, probably at any one time, we've got a dozen yeast strains making all different beers at the brewery, including our spontaneously fermented beer, which have, a whole variety of Portland, Maine yeast and bacteria that's in the air. But that's cool because the Belgian beers, they're very yeast-driven beers. A lot of the kind of variety you get in the variety and complexity and uniqueness in the aroma and flavor of the Belgian-style beers is driven by the yeast. So we're constantly open to try different cultures for new flavor and aroma experiences.
Right, and also recently you guys celebrated 10 years of the Curio. So like from your perspective, what was it like? What has it been like? Realizing that it's been that long, and how was the celebration for you personally as the founder of the brewery?
It was cool because when we first made that beer, and that we really stumbled on that beer. We almost made it by mistake. It's kind of a long story as to how we ended up with that, just kind of discovering that beer. But when we first made it, we really figured it would just be a minuscule portion of our production. We didn't think we'd sell that much of it, and now it's one of our best-selling beers.
Right.
So it's been cool to see that grow over the last 10 years, and we had a lot of pretty fun celebrations for the 10th anniversary that we had all over the country.
Right. And so it seems like nowadays, both in the craft beer scene and the home brewing scene, like sours, funky Brett beers are almost the new IPA. Mm-hmm. So you guys have been growing your sour program by leaps and bounds in the past few years. So what has it been really like for you to, see, the acceptance of your sour, your barrel program, and use that as inspiration to really keep it growing and trying new things all the time?
It's been good to see him gain in popularity because we've been making these beers for years and years. I mean, we were making them a long time ago when no one was drinking them, and we'd still be making them now if no one was drinking them, just because it's fun for us and we learn at the brewery, and innovation's a huge part of our culture, and we're really motivated by giving people unique flavor and aroma experiences in beer. So we'd still be making them even if they hadn't gained a lot of acceptance, with beer drinkers in the country. But they have lately, and the styles have really gained a lot of acceptance. People are interested in them, so it's fun, and we were able to ramp up our production pretty quickly because we've been doing them for a long time. And we were able to buy the original building that I started in, that we never owned, which is adjacent to our brewery, a number of years ago, and we've dedicated that entire building to making these innovative beers, almost all of them kind of sour, funky beers with fruit, and spontaneously fermented beers and barrel-aged beers. So we're pretty fired up.
To me, one of the best signs of the growth of your barrel program is the fact that over the past 2 years you've been actually able to release some of them to more of your markets instead of just having every single one being released at the brewery. So, how do you come to decide which ones you're able to brew more of, and and release to markets like New York?
It just ends up being a practical issue. Some of the beers, it's just almost impossible to make enough to get into broad distribution.
Right.
But and we also, when we come up with an idea for one of these beers, we don't know
if it's going to even come out good.
Yeah, well, and we don't know. It's just kind of a lot of it's experimentation, and these beers take 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So, sometimes we make enough, and we're very happy with it, and we can put it into broad distribution. Right. Sometimes we just make a little of something and end up being extremely happy with it. Right. 2 or 3 years down the line, but unfortunately we've only made 100 gallons. So whenever we can, we get it into broad distribution, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
This episode and all episodes, and for that matter, all posts on the brewedpalate.com are brought to you by the following sponsors. Bitter & Esther's Homebrew Shop, located at 700 Washington Avenue in Brooklyn, New York, or at bitterandesters.com. Online orders available. YakimaValleyHops.com, a great resource for all your hop needs, and they also do sell some homebrewing equipment. So go visit YakimaValleyHops.com for all your favorite hop varieties and experimental ones that you may have not heard of before. Also, Artisanal Imports, a great Belgian beer importing company. So to know which beers they actually import, because you probably have been enjoying them already, go to artisanalimports.com. And finally, a great source for all your kegging needs, especially affordably priced corny kegs at the 5, 6, and 3 gallon sizes. Go to cornykeg.com for great prices, as I said.
And one of the special beers that I always see at events like this is the Bourbon Black. So over the years you've also experimented with more than just the curio and bourbon. But can you just talk a bit about you have Winslow here tonight, which is in rum barrels. Can you just talk about your other clean barrels that you've been experimenting with also? Yeah,
with the Bourbon Black, what we do is we use the curio. We use the same barrels that made the curio to age the black in. We age it for quite a bit longer. And then the Winslow is a cool beer, and that's kind of special to us because my first employee, Ned White, started New England Distilling, which is right around the corner from the brewery. Mm-hmm. And we actually use his rum barrels to age the Winslow in. So it's kind of a cool connection. He worked at the brewery years ago, 15 or so years ago. And he's doing great with this new distillery. It's cool to be able to use his barrels to age this beer in. And I believe with that beer, he first took our curio barrels, aged the rum in, and then we aged the Winslow in those same barrels. So it's kind of had our beer and then his rum and then our beer again in the barrels. So it's a lot of fun.
All right. And one thing, I may have asked you this last year also, but 2014 for me has been like a year of almost interviewing a lot of craft beer rock stars. I interviewed Charlie Papazian and John Palmer. So I think that, especially amongst Belgian-inspired breweries in America, Allagash is seen as one of the premier breweries that people look to see, how to brew a really good Belgian beer. So how have you seen, especially now that you're growing a lot more along with the craft beer community, how have you seen Allagash's role develop over time?
We've just kind of been plugging away year after year. I don't really stop to think too much about, how we're perceived from that perspective. We're just trying to do a good job making great beer, like I said, giving people great experiences with beer, But it's cool that we've finally been able to grow a little over the past few years, and people are interested in these Belgian style beers, and we're going to keep doing what we've always done since day one, which is sticking to these Belgian styles and sticking to innovation and having fun making beer.
Right. And one of the questions I always ask people at the end is like, what's coming up? But like, I think that I really respect the way you've grown, is that you do it gradually, you make very smart decisions. So like, I don't know what you guys have in the plans. We can just talk a little bit about, how you make those kind of decisions, and, and how has that been, able to let you really do a good job in expanding the brewery?
We've done things in some ways the same way every year for the last 20 years. We've just tried to grow methodically and carefully and organically, and like I said, we haven't opened any new territories for years. We may open one or two up in the next couple of years, but we're taking our time and focusing on our core values, which are innovation, community. We're hopefully giving back to the community more every year. Right. Hopefully Allagash is a better place to work every year. Hopefully we're more sustainable. Our quality is getting better. We're coming up with more innovative beers, and that's what we've always focused on.
Right.
Working hard at those core values. That's what we're going to continue to do, and hopefully the net result will be, us continuing to come out with beers that people are enjoying for hopefully a long time.
I mean, do you also see the Belgian segment of American craft beer also growing? And now that you've been around for so long, I think more and more Belgian style breweries have been opening up, and even the New York area has seen a few Belgian yeast forward beer breweries open up. How do you see the Belgian thing catching on, because it's been really growing recently?
We've never really looked at it. When I started brewing Belgian style beers, I did it because no one else was doing it.
Right.
And I figured, why spend a year building a brewery and then maybe my life running it, brewing beer styles that were already available. So that's why I chose the Belgian category. I didn't see it as a business opportunity.
Right.
And we still don't look at the segment so much from that perspective. We're just kind of doing what we love to do, and
right.
Hopefully people will keep drinking the beers.
I mean, to me, it's like, embracing, the artistry of Belgian beer, though, and really making it your own, like taking the American craft beer level of creativity and...
Well, yeah, that's what we try to do. We try to take those traditional styles and kind of put our own twist on it.
Because I feel that, like, as you probably know, American craft beer has even now influenced craft beer in Belgium itself.
Yeah.
But that's also as a result of guys like you who have taken, traditional Belgian styles and really revamped them and brought them to a level that no one ever thought they could get to. Which is awesome.
Yeah, well, hopefully people will keep drinking the beers, and we'll keep making them.
All right, so I guess wrap this up. I wish you guys good luck in your expansions. You guys continue to do a great job year in and year out. And I look forward to following up with you next year and seeing just how much you've grown.
All right, thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.